All right. Hi, everyone. We are the Ruminating Ponderers. I am Fernando Prieto.
I'm
And
Dishaban Perez. Hello, good afternoon.
we are going to talk about why the use of reflection, why it is important. And we found out that the idea of reflection it is an essential part of our personal development, right? Thus, in this sense, introspection is paramount since it is the examination of our thoughts, right? Our own conscious thoughts and feelings. And reflection, in this sense, demands asking some uncertain amount of questions, generally a lot of questions, to deduce information from evidence, right, and reasoning. It also calls into question our perspectives, right, and our attributes, our experiences, our actions and interactions. The questions, it asks questions about all of these aspects. The idea of reflection is to gain insight and how we are going to move forward, right? How are we going to approach any possible not problems but situations. It develops an understanding of how we learn and how we teach, right? And the idea is to create a habit of analyzing our actions, how we behave. Reflection often deals with feelings and emotions that are related to our experience and broader context, um, our perspectives and theoretical frameworks. So, reflection sometimes undergoes the underuse of it because it takes time, it takes thinking, and mostly unveiling uncomfortable questions and uncomfortable realities we are living, right? What do you think,
Yes,
Johan?
yes, I think to some degree, every teacher reflects on her practices at some point. But I think it is very underused as a formal tool. For example, it's important to say, well, today I'm going to improve this aspect of my teaching. And after the lesson, I'm going to reflect on that. I'm going to take some time and reflect on that issue. I think that that's most teachers are missing. Including myself. And as a teaching tool, you if you want to improve on this issue, you will need to seek advice to go to the books of, for example, the one we are reading now by Gabriel Diaz. It's an excellent tool on how to deal with this issue. It's not like, well, I'm going to reflect, but reflect on what? Reflect on how. To learn how to do this, you can go on and read these specialist books.
Yes, of course. Besides, the idea of reflection is not only to think about the things, but also to take action, right? According to what you discover about anything.
Yes, it's a
And
very practical tool.
yes,
You,
yes,
you need to approach it in a pragmatic sense also. Not that's just some theory. It's very useful.
indeed. As our teacher mentioned, um, Mercedes, in a conference, she told that we are, in fact, always analyzing everything unconsciously. But this is similar in this sense, but doing it consciously, right? Thinking about being aware of that we have to improve in some aspects.
Yes, definitely.
And the second part of this discussion is going to be about peer coaching. And reflection also it goes hand by hand with peer coaching because in this sense you can also reflect about other person's perspective. For example, we have our peer coaching with cooperating teachers, or our classmates and peers, even the PAL and the inspector, that generally in the first visit they guide you and they make you okay think about some things that you have to improve. But the peer that is our coach, in fact, is our cooperating teacher.
Yes. Yes, and many times when we think about this peer coaching, we think, for example, yes, I'm an English teacher, or my peer coaching will be an English teacher also. But this practice of observing other teachers' lessons can also take place with a teacher of a different subject. It's very interesting. I've heard this being done. I've never done it, but I heard of this being done and giving very good results. For example, I'm an English teacher who is starting to teach, and there's a very experienced, to give an example, a geography teacher, and I can observe his lesson to understand how he deals with the group, how he manages his class, and I can take very useful uh, ideas from the way he deals with his lesson.
Yes, that is awesome. I have never had the opportunity, but I know some cases in Castillos, some peers and other teachers that they work together. For example, when they have tutorship hours, they help in other subjects. So an English teacher, for example, goes to as you mentioned, a geography class, and she helps with some students, and it is a great opportunity to find out how other teachers their didactics methods are, because they have different methods and approaches than us. So
Of course, and people have different strengths. I can learn from this teacher, and this teacher can learn from me also. If he wants to pay a visit to one of my lessons,
yes,
there's always something to improve.
yes, of course. And well, about talking about the cooperating teacher, of course that we learn a lot of by watching them, but we cannot maybe assess them. But they do assess us. They can see our mistakes maybe and our areas to improve, and they can say, okay, what do you think about this? Maybe you can do that. And in this sense, we can gain insight and reflect about for example, when giving instructions or managing the classroom, in the transitions, and they can tell us, okay, you are good, but you can improve this. Maybe you can be more clear in this area. And well, this is the experience I have had during this career.
Yes. And having positive feedback is always something very nice.
Yes,
You,
of course. I don't know if it is positive or negative. I think I take it just a feedback because,
yes,
okay, they are going to mention strengths and weaknesses, but it
yes,
is
but
always,
sometimes you're not sure if something you have done is good or bad, and your
yes,
people says, "Oh, I think that's excellent," for example, and yeah,
yes, of course.
you feel nice about your practice.
You can have different opinions.
Of course, of course.
Yes. But the idea is to always to improve, right? Um, very well then. Maybe we can go on the third topic, the
Yes.
description of different teaching scenarios. We were discussing before about maybe to talk about young learners, teenagers, and adults. And we mentioned that I do not love working with young learners because I feel more comfortable with teenagers or adults. I love to work with adults because they have another mindset. And teenagers or young ones from 7th grade to 9th grade, they need more management, right?
Yes. Classroom management, sorry, is always an issue with these younger groups. Yes, what I think in the size of the groups is a big issue here. We are used to have classes of 30 students, for example. I think it's too much to manage these groups when they are that big.
Yes,
It's hard
totally.
to group them to, and they always have different levels, different needs, and you need to adjust to this. And if you have fewer students per group, you can manage this in a better way.
Yes, of course, you have to take into account a lot of aspects. Like you mentioned the leveling of the lesson, the grouping configuration, um, also this maybe the piecing, the use, the variety of activities, everything changes, and you have to make the classroom the lesson for students to be engaged all the time,
Yes,
because if you
and
give them the time to not being engaged, they are going to do whatever they
yes,
want.
yes, and young learners, I think, need more individualized feedback than adults. For example, I think in adult groups, it's easier to give a general feedback, for example, as of what you expected from a task. And younger learners, they need this feedback on their individual tasks. So it takes time. It
Yes, they
you
need
need
a lot
to
of
address
more
each one
attention.
of them individually.
Yes, totally. It comes to my mind a student in the practice that always says the same. Teacher, I don't understand. It doesn't matter if you said one word, a whole sentence, anything. He always says the same. I don't understand. This the first thing that came to his mind. And you say, okay, what do you don't understand? And he says, I don't know this word, this. What do you have to do? And you explain individually to him, and he okay, but he's like he's usually not paying attention and talking to peers, and that's one of
Yes,
the
yes,
issues,
this
right?
happens a lot.
Totally. On the other hand, adults or teenagers have another mindset. They talk with their peers, but they are also paying attention. They are more serious. This uh, totally different thing. In addition, in the night shift, for example, with adults, the groups are not so big as the young learners, that you have almost 30 students. Usually there are 15 students groups, so you can work different with them, right?
Yes. Again, the matter of the group size is something very important.
Totally.
I keep repeating it because it's
Yes,
something
yes,
it's
yes, it is.
it's one of the problems in our educational system, I think.
Yes, totally. It's the most real challenge we
Yeah.
face. Um,
Yes, I've also worked with young learners and adults. um, in the, as you say, in the night shift is very common. I remember having a student who was like, I don't know, 40 years old. And one day he came to me and told me, you know, you were the teacher of, you were my father's teacher also. And I was like, what? I'm not that old. This man is like more than 40 years old. And then I remember, yes, I had a student who was like 70 years old. I think.
Oh, really?
He was right.
You thought, well, what? I'm not so old.
Yeah.
Uh, um, as I was saying, it depends on the group. It is maybe more challenging with teaching young learners, but don't not always, right? There are some
Strategies.
or there are some opportunities are sometimes that maybe you work with a group of young learners that it is really quiet and a nice group to work with, right? Not always, but there are
Yes.
cases.
A tool I'm using more often with young learners is Kahoot, and they feel very engaged
Yes, the aims is
in,
paramount
yes,
for them.
and also this sort of competition sometimes makes them like pay
Yes,
more attention.
being more engaged, yes, in the
Yeah.
lesson. So now we can maybe talk about the fourth topic, the analysis of both strengths and aspects to be improved in our practice. And one of these aspects, I would say that is for me to work with young learners because I feel more comfortable with adults. So I could improve in this area. I mean, I have worked with young learners and it is okay. It's not what I really like, but it's sometimes necessary because you can choose the groups or the shift. And maybe one of these aspects I should improve. I am taking the practice in seventh grade, and my cooperating teacher told me that I should work on my classroom management because it's difficult for me to make them or tell them to be quiet constantly. Okay, be quiet, Juancito. Don't speak. Don't stand up. Sit down, Pedrito. And this is something that makes me exhausted, right? It makes me tired, and I don't feel comfortable with this in this sense.
Of
And
course.
what do you think?
Yes, the ideal thing is for them to be engaged, and there wouldn't be a need for you to do that. But of course, it's not always possible. We know we all have very difficult students sometimes, and
Yes, yes.
yes,
One of
ultimately you can try to give them a different activity than the rest of the class. That's an extreme case. I don't know.
Yes, maybe
I
an extra activity for the ones that finish, or that the strategy I tried to make was to okay, don't make the let them time or give them time to get bored or to talk. I was like one activity after the other. Tack, tack, tack. And when I was doing that, the my cooperating teacher told me that I had to work on the transitions because I was like, okay, I want to make them work. I want them to work to be focused.
overwhelm them with activities so they don't misbehave.
Yes, yes. And I forget about or didn't pay attention to the transitions. And I was okay, now we are going to do that. Now we are going to pack. Now, and the teacher told me, okay, don't forget about transitions. So it is okay to that you want to make them engage and focus, but don't forget about transitions because it makes the activities, the transition smooth or and that is another aspect that I have to improve. that there are a lot of aspects to work.
Yes, for these reasons, it's very important the peer coaching. You have the other teacher telling you what he thinks you can improve. It's something perhaps even when you reflect on your practice after the lesson, you think it was everything okay, and you didn't pay attention to this particular aspect that the other teacher observing your lesson was able to grasp.
Yes, yes, of course. That is what is she's doing. I mean, that is
Yeah.
part of his job or her job. Um, Another thing that I can comes to my mind is that while doing these transitions and give them a lot of activities, it affects the waiting time, the pacing that became smaller. And maybe in some activities I didn't give them enough time to think, to discuss between them, or if it is not enough, they can't think and properly. And if it is too much waiting time, they become messy. So this like I have to balance the waiting time. Another topic that it may be possible. I think that okay, maybe little discussion between small group, between pairs, can make them engage, focus, and but they are talking to each other. They are socializing. That is what they want. They want to socialize. So it would be a good strategy to make them discuss in pairs and help each other, right? Like a peer coaching.
Yes, yes, and it's important to this, especially when with young learners, the way you group them is something that can help in the classroom management and the way they engage and behave. Sometimes, well, we all know fulanito and fulanito. If they work together, they won't work.
Totally.
And
This yes, yes. This is an important part of grouping configuration that we have to choose who is going to work with who. Because if you let them, okay, work in groups and you don't arrange them, they are going to get with the ones they feel better, more comfortable, and they are going to talk, and one thing goes to another.
yes,
All right. What about you? What do you think are your weaknesses and strengths?
well, one weakness I would say is too much use of L1 during lessons. I would like to reduce this
with
and
with young learners?
all levels,
Those
because adults also sometimes if you start from the beginning,
I don't
hello,
understand.
good evening, yeah, and you say everything in English,
Yes,
they don't feel comfortable.
yes, yes. It's difficult.
But is
The-
the aim is always to reduce the level of L1, but I think it's something to be done step by step.
yes, yes. Of
I
course. Yes, when necessary, that it is okay to use the the L1, because if you don't have a manner, if you can't tell them or you communicate by mimicking or gestures or using English, okay, you have to speak in Spanish.
yes, yes. You need to sometimes also to improve your rapport with the group. Sometimes you take 5 or 10 minutes to discuss a particular topic and in L1, and then okay, now it's over. Let's continue with the lesson. And this I think can help improve your relation with the group, your relationship with the group.
And what strategy would you use to improve this area?
Well, as you say, mimicking is one of them. And well, of course, always reflection. You you reflect after the lesson. Why have you? Because it's not like I use L1 in during all the time, but I use L1 at that time. Why did I did that? So you reflect and how could I have done things differently?
Yes, of course. One strategy that comes to my mind that I have seen it a lot is that when a student doesn't understand and wants explanation in Spanish, you don't say it. You ask another student to tell the other student what they have to do, for example, when giving instructions. And in this sense, you don't use the first language, but they can use it maybe to communicate, or so you don't use the it's like a trick, it's like a trick.
Yeah,
You don't use the
it's a
L1
good
part,
idea. It's a
but
good
they
idea.
do. It's a trick, but it works.
Of course.
Can you think about another strength or area to improve?
Oh, well, areas to improve a lot.
Yes,
But
we do.
yes, well, what you say about classroom management in young learners, yes, that's also an issue. I've always worked with young learners, seventh graders, where they were before we called them first grade, now it's seventh grade. Yes, and classroom management with these groups is always an issue.
Yes, it is. Yes, and strategies and things. It is quite wide, right? We were mentioned, okay, the grouping configurations, keep them engaged. These are there are several strategies that we may use that can improve this classroom management, because it's not saying, okay, I'm going to improve classroom management. Well, Juancito, shut up. You sit down. This is not I mean, maybe a direct instruction, but it's not a strategy in the whole. I mean, right? Maybe with activities, maybe with the grouping configuration, or I don't know, sequencing the activities. Or,
Yes, different activities. I think varieties is something that helps a lot. Okay, today we are going to draw a drawing activity. Next lesson we are going to play a game, for example. Today we are going to work with computers.
yes, I think the most one of the most important things when they become messy is when they get bored. That in
Of
this
course,
sense,
yes.
if you keep them engaged, they are going to be focused. They are going to be maybe more focused and quiet. So, I don't know. You have to do it and then see it.
Yes, we need to always remember that they are teenagers. Yes, so some
Yes.
things it's okay to to allow.
Can you think about anything else? I have one more thing to talk about.
Okay.
The teacher talking time versus student talking time. Because we usually speak a lot during the class, and we give instructions and we explain, and we are running out of time. Okay, no, maybe not. And we used to talk a lot, and when we have visits from our didactics teachers, they usually say the same thing. Okay, teacher talking time. And one of my last lessons with fifth grade, I didn't speak. I barely speak during the class. I was trying a strategy, right? And I wrote papers giving the instruction to one student. Okay, I wrote, okay, for example, Ask your classmates what is technology. No, ask your classmates to draw anything on the whiteboard. And I give them the paper. I didn't say anything. I give the paper to one student, and the student, okay, he said, okay, and now we are going to draw anything on the whiteboard. And the students were, what? Okay. Draw anything on the whiteboard. All of us, yes, yes. They draw, okay. And I wrote in another paper and give them to other students. And the other student, I wrote, okay, ask them if point an object and ask them if this is technology. Is this technology? Okay, and he wrote it, he read it, and he goes on the whiteboard and says, okay, is this technology? And the rest of the students, yes, no, why? Okay, because it has energy. Is this technology? No, why? Because it is a ball. And okay, and then I wrote another paper for another student, gave them to him, and ask your classmates what is technology. And he goes, and okay, what is technology? And they became like thoughtful. Oh, what is technology? Something that uses energy. And then I just at the end of the lesson, I stand up and began saying, no, think, okay, it is made by the humans. Okay, it could be. And then, okay, find out, Google what is technology, and then you're going to tell me. And then they start looking in the web and saying, okay, technology is anything that helps humans have a comfortable life or do things easier, blah, blah, blah. And this lesson was really crazy. I was just laughing because it was new for me. I was just innovating, creating something. I don't know if it exists or what. And
Well,
I just spoke at the end of the lesson, a few lines, and I thought, okay, what would be if I do this same thing in a visit? Because for a lesson that no one is watching you, what what would the teacher say? And it comes to my mind like, okay, and I have it, I buried in my mind, what if, right? And for
well,
me, it was, I don't know what it was because I don't have anyone to tell me, okay, that
well,
was okay.
if you manage to get the students to listen to each other and to talk to each other, I think you achieved a lot. That was for sure that if you achieved that, it was a great lesson.
For me, was great, but as you know, if someone else sees it, they can have another perspective. For me, it was a really nice class. It was,
Yes.
but I will never know, maybe.
Yes, managing student interaction is always a challenge, especially for them to do it in the target language. Yes.
Yes, yes, of course. But in this sense, I reduced my teacher talking time, and they were the ones was student center. I mean,
Yes.
they were talking, they were doing the activities, they were giving the instructions. That, as I said, I was just trying something new.
Yes,
But
I think this is the way to improve on something. You say, for example, today I want to improve this specific point, and you focus on that. Then you reflect. Okay, next class. Well, now I want to improve this point. You do something different, and after the lesson, you reflect on what you did, and that's the way to improve.
yes, of course, we have to try. If we never
Yeah,
try, we are not going to evolve and improve, right? But
of
it was
course.
funny. I was laughing with at myself. It was really great. Okay, maybe you can talk about the last topic. What do you think?
Yes.
What lessons have we learned in our process of teaching so far? A
Well,
lot.
the biggest, yes, a lot, but the biggest lesson I think is about the importance of reflection because it's something when you start studying to become a teacher, it's not the first thing you think you're going to learn. No. The most powerful tool is reflection. In my case, for example, when I started studying to be a teacher, I never thought of this as being so important. But then as you start to study and you start to use it, of course, it doesn't work if you just read in a book and it says reflection is important and you don't do it. That won't help, obviously. But as you start doing it and using this tool, you realize the importance of it and how helpful it is.
Yes, of course. As you mentioned, it's not the same reading theory about pacing or use of time. Okay, you learn how to about the topic, you know. So you learn the theory, but then you have to go to act to practice it, right? To take it into action. And okay, you learn the theory, you take action, but then, as you said, the most powerful tool is to improve, is to think, to question yourself. Okay, it was what I read. It was a successful lesson. How can I improve? What the aspects were the best or the worst? I don't know, but it is a powerful tool indeed.
Yes, and it's a process you can do it, as we were discussing with your peers. Is you think that, well, in order for me to learn, I need something that is above me, a teacher code, for example. No, but you can learn also with your peers, the ones who are studying with you.
Yes, of course, and I think that this sense, this of reflection, is linked to experience because as more you reflect, as more you improve, you are going to gain experience. As more you do, you are gaining experience and become better, right?
Yes, yes.
I'm
Well,
not saying that theory is not important because it is,
no, of
but
course, we were
both,
discussing also about this on how to use reflection properly.
yes, of course.
Yeah. No.
So they go hand to hand, right?
Yes, of course.
Because we
We
have to
are,
know what we are doing to improve. How to know the theory, how to know that, okay, pacing refers to this. How do I apply? Then I apply it right. In this sense, reflection is not just, as we mentioned, it's not just to think about your actions, but to take actions about it, right?
yeah. We are running out of time, but
Very well then.
I believe we have covered everything we wanted to.
Yes. And as a conclusion, the most powerful reflection and the thing that we learn in the process is indeed, in fact, to reflect about the process.
Well, it
Very
was
well,
great
Johan.
time.
It was a pleasure to have this conversation with you.
Me too.
I hope our audience liked our conversation too. Okay, keep going.
And learn something as we learn speaking to each other.
Totally.
Thank you.
Okay, regards.